Welcome to Basket of Tales, a time travel into the world of stories.
Hello friends, welcome to the story time with Basket of Tales. This is Miss S and I am so excited to share another interesting story riddle from the tales of Vikram and Bethaal. Vikram tries again to catch Bethaal. After several attempts, he finally manages and succeeds. He then carries Bethaal on his shoulders. Like always, Bethaal starts narrating another riddle-based story to the king Vikram. And he also warns him not to speak anything or ask anything until they reach their destination. Else, he would go back to the tree. This time, Vikram is determined not to utter even a single word. He just nods his head and silently keeps walking, holding Bethaal on his back. Bethaal begins the story. This is a story of the king Roopsen and his brave bodyguard Veeraval. King Roopsen, who was a ruler of a kingdom named Vardhaman, was a very wise and generous king, and he took good care of his people. He would listen to their problems with patience and would help them with solutions. In the same kingdom lived Veeraval, who was a very skilled and brave person. He aspired to be king's bodyguard. With that wish in his heart, one day he takes an appointment with the king and expresses his desire to be his bodyguard. The king then decides to interview him and starts questioning him. So, Veeraval, what are your expectations and what salary would you take to protect me? Veeraval, without a second thought, quickly says, 9 gold coins for each day. His prompt reply surprises the king. He asks him to prove how he was worthy of 9 gold coins. Veeraval then showcases his talent and bravery in front of the king by using bows and arrows along with some other weapons. This impresses the king, and he decides to appoint him as his bodyguard. Upon hearing the news, Veeraval's family too feels very happy and proud of him. One dark night, while Veeraval was guarding the king, he hears a woman crying. The cry gets so loud that the king wakes up. He calls Veeraval and asks him to go and check what's the matter with the woman and why is she crying so loud. Veeraval takes his orders and goes to find the woman. Finally, he finds the woman and asks her, "What's wrong? Why are you crying so loud? Are you in some kind of trouble?" To which the woman replies with a sad voice, "I got to know 1 mile south in the cave lives Kal Devta, who is very hungry, and if that Kal Devta comes out, he would actually eat up King Roopsen." This worries Veeraval. He asks her if there is any other way out to protect the king from him. The woman replies, "Well, I don't think there is any solution. He is very hungry and needs food. He believes that no one could replace the royal family as his food. We all love our king and we don't want to lose him. And that is why I'm so sad and I started crying." The brave Veeraval says with a firm voice, "I'm not going to let this happen. I would fight and I will instead offer myself to the Kal Devta to save my king." Somehow the king gets to know about this and wants to stop Veeraval. He never wanted his people to sacrifice their lives for the sake of their king. The next day, Veeraval decides to go to the cave and offer himself to Kal Devta. He goes to Kal Devta and says, "This is Veeraval, and I am the king's bodyguard. I request you to please spare my king's life and eat me instead." The hungry Kal Devta agrees, and therefore this is how the Veeraval sacrifices his life for the sake of the king. King Roopsen, in search of Veeraval, lands up in Kal Devta's cave. He gets to know that Veeraval had sacrificed his life for his sake. The heartbroken Roopsen also sacrifices his own life by going inside Kal Devta's mouth. Now at this point, Bethaal pauses and asks Vikram a question. "Now tell me, King Vikram, whose sacrifice was great, the king or his bodyguard?" So children, here I am going to pause and give you all few seconds. Now you think and tell me whose sacrifice was greater, king's or the bodyguard? And I shall continue the story in a bit. Now let's hear what Vikram has to say. Vikram, because of his instinctive nature, immediately replies, "King's sacrifice was greater because the bodyguard's duty is to serve his king and let go of his own life when needed. He is the king's protector." The wise king, who actually gave away everything from his wealth to his life for the sake of his people, is really great and worthy of praise. So the king's sacrifice was greater than his bodyguard. Vikram then asks Bethaal to finish the rest of the story, to which Bethaal starts laughing. He says, "Ha ha, there is no Kal Devta and no sacrifice. It was an illusion created by goddess Lakshmi to test Veeraval's dedication and commitment towards his king." Actually, both Veeraval and the king Roopsen came out safe. Veeraval passes the test, and goddess Lakshmi appreciates Veeraval for being such a dedicated and dutiful bodyguard, and Roopsen for being a responsible and noble king. And from that day onwards, King Roopsen realizes how much Veeraval cares and respects him. And in turn, Veeraval and the people of his kingdom hail the king for the love and concern for the people of his kingdom. Veeraval gets promoted as the army chief, and Bethaal finishes his story. And as soon as the story is done, Bethaal quickly hops back onto the tree, and with a notorious laugh he says, "Well, I told you not to speak up, and you did so. You lost your promise." Vikram is back again trying to convince Bethaal and bring him back from the tree. Now let's wait and see what happens next. See you all in the next story time. Until then, be humble, be kind, and never give up. Happy listening.